Am I not dazzling in my dazzler? And my complete dazzler outfit, because I have a hat and more to come. So hello everyone. Welcome or welcome back to my very small place on the internet where I talk about my knitting life, my knitting adventures. My name is Isabelle. I am in France in Normandy, and today it's gonna be a regular episode about my knitting adventures because finally, I have a dazzler, so I'm gonna be showing it to you. And I have to say, if you haven't ever knit with Gilliatt by Dazzling Dazzler, which is a company in France, but I know they have stock lists all over the world, they may not be available to you. But if you have the opportunity, if you have never knit with Gilliatt, and if you have the opportunity to do so, please try it out, because I had 5 balls of these blue Tempête Gilliatt. That's the colorway. Tempête is storm in French. And I have knit the sweater, the hat. I am knitting arm warmers, and I will still have almost a complete ball left over to knit a scarf. So this is a yarn that goes a very long way. So if the Dazzler and the Dazzler stories and the new sweater cast on is of any interest to you, please stay tuned. Okay, first, the big elephant in the room. I finally have finished my Dazzler, and as I just said, I was so surprised about how little yarn I used. I'm used to using much more yarn than what I used in this sweater. I did use 5.5 skein total for the whole sweater with the color work, that is a all over color work, and I'm gonna stand up and show it to you. And I used just a tad over 2 skeins of the Boulot. Boulot is the gray yarn that I already had in my stash for many years, for a long time, several years. And I used just over 3 skeins of the Tempête, the blue colorway. I went into the 4th skein, the 4th ball. So these are 100-gram balls. I went into the 4th one for less than halfway through binding off of, the body, I think, because I did knit the body last. So I was very surprised about how little yarn I used for the whole sweater. 5 balls, 100 grams balls. It's not what I'm used to for myself. I usually use more than that. So either my knitting, the way I'm knitting has changed, or as I am thinking, Gilliatt is going a very, very, very long way. So anyway, Gilliatt is a worsted yarn by Dazzling Dazzler, and it's a woolen spun. So it's a very fluffy yarn. It takes up room and it doesn't bloom up as much when you block it, because the dimensions of the blocked sweater are about the same as the dimensions of the sweater that I knit. I have one thing that I may go back to. You see there is a little bump here on the sleeve before, so this motif is the last one before separating for the sleeves. And I think there is kind of a difference in my gauge. Also, although I reknit the sleeve with a bigger needle, and you see it a bit here too and a bit less. So I think it's both situations. First, the difference in gauge in between the small circumference on the sleeves and the fact that my gauge changed and also the change in the needle size. I think I should have gotten up maybe higher in my needles, but if I had done that, I'm afraid my stitches would have been of a very different size and it would have been quite obvious. So I'd prefer, and I think when I laid it down flat to block, I pinned it down, and it also may be the result of my pinning because it's right at the middle of the sleeve when it was laying down flat. So I may steam block it again and do something here, but most probably if I had not told you that, you would not have guessed, or maybe you would not have seen it. Other thing is I need my sleeves long enough to go to my wrist because this is what I prefer, and you see here I'm not pulling on it. The sleeves go up on their own. I can't keep them down even though they are the proper length. So I don't think it felt it during the blocking process. Because I was very careful. I was babysitting it because the water would turn blue. So I did not want the blue to bleed on the light gray. So I would just press with my hands to expel the water, change the water, tap it in the water so that the water comes a bit blue again, change the water and do that again. Maybe I did that 5 times. And then the water was clear, but I did not let it sit in the water for too long. I let it sit for a bit. And then I placed it in a towel, took all the water out, and it took a very long time to dry because it's very thick due to the double layers for the yarn with the color work. So I forgot to say, but I will have most probably placed a picture at the beginning of me talking about the Dazzler. It's by Lisa Lewis and it's in the Len magazine number 23, the winter 2024. So I'm going to be standing up. I made the 3rd size. I started over because when I first started to knit it, I had made a gauge, a swatch. I had gauged my swatch, which did not work. And my sweater I was supposed to be knitting the 1st size, and it was absolutely too small. So I ripped out everything because I did not think you do the increases in between the motifs, and I did not think I could go from the 1st size to the 3rd size without you noticing or me noticing and the kind of the pattern not aligning. The print is busy enough so that I don't think afterwards that it would have mattered and I could have done that, but I did not want to do it because I did not want to have a sweater that would be with that little part of something that I would be aware of and I would not like. So I ripped out, started again with the same needles, but I did cast on the 3rd size. And I use 4mm needles when in the pattern they recommend 4.5mm needles, if my memory serves me correctly. 5.5mm needles, but of course I was not using the correct yarn. So I got my gauge with 4mm needles and Gilliatt. And I need the 3rd size, which is usually the size that I need for myself. So it's fitting me well enough, it's roomy enough, it's not too big. The sleeve separation, at first I was thinking I would separate for the sleeves sooner than the pattern recommended. But I ended up separating for the sleeves after this motif, which is the one that the pattern recommends. And I knit it longer, way longer. So I knit longer for the body and a lot longer for the sleeves because I should have stopped here. And it was too short for me. So I did add that much of the checkerboard motif. And first, I stopped here thinking, oh, that's gonna be enough. That's gonna be enough. I don't want more checkerboard because it would be more too obvious. Thinking of it, you see, it's the sleeves retract and also the body of the sweater retract. I'm going to be standing up and you're going to be seeing it. But I don't know, maybe it's just the way my knitting is and the color work make it retract on itself. My floats are not, I'm going to be showing you my floats. My floats are not tight. I have plenty of room. You know, I can pull on it. There is no problem. It just lays where it wants, and it wants to lay here for my sleeves. That's the way it is. So please excuse my sweatpants. I was at work. I just came back and I set up the recording setup because I wanted, we are on a Monday, I will have another very full week of work and I wanted to record so that I have enough time to edit before next Friday. So you see, the sweater is quite roomy. It doesn't, it's not tight on myself, but, and I did 2 checkerboards at the bottom before the ribbing, and I thought it was enough. I did not want more checkerboard at the bottom, and I did not want to make another full motif, another full repetition of this one, for example, or any other. And I thought, color work wise, I was at the equilibrium that way. My sleeves would be just a tad longer compared to the body, and for the checkerboard, the motifs are aligning perfectly, and I did not want to make it longer. So you have short rows at the top of the shoulder. I removed my scarf so that you can see the neckline a bit better. You have short rows before you start the color work. Hello Ramses. And maybe, okay. And so that the back of the neck sits a bit higher, and then you need the whole color work. It was such a pleasant knitting time. I really enjoyed knitting on the body. So as I said, I really enjoyed knitting on the body, even though I had to do it over again, but I was quite early on the yoke, so I ripped out and did over again. I had a lot of trouble with my sleeves because at first, I'm not sure which one was the first sleeve that I knit. So the sleeve starts with that motif, the vertical one. And there was quite a bit of a difference between my gauge on the short circumference for the sleeves and my gauge for the yoke on the long cord. So I'm knitting with DPNs because, you know, I'm sorry, but Magic Loop is not my friend. So anyway, so I did knit quite a bit on the sleeve, and then I was thinking, no, it's not gonna work. So I increased half a needle size, half a millimeter. So I went to 4.5 millimeter for the sleeves, so that the stitches are not very different in size on the sleeves from the body. Believe me, it's the way it is. They are not very different, but at the same time, my gauge would match the gauge I had on the body much better. And when you look at, this motif here, it's extremely similar to the motif I have on the body. So my gauge is about the same. I don't know why the sleeves pull back. Maybe it's the nature of a colorwork sleeve. I don't know. But anyway, that's the only thing that I need to say about that. And if I was to do it again, which I don't think I will, because I don't need 2 sweaters that are this busy, I would make another section of color work on the body to match longer sleeves and not finish with a long run of checkerboards just to finish, to have the length that I would like, because I should have stopped on the body and on the sleeves with that pattern that was here, and then you add, maybe that much of of ribbing, and that would have been it. And it was not enough for me. And what Lisa Lewis instructs you is to make 2 rows of the checkerboard, or as much as needed. And I've seen other people adding more checkerboard, but I did not want to make more than 3, and I did only 2 underbody, and I did not want more than 2 underbody. So I'm going to maybe put another sweater so that you can see my floats. Okay, total change. It was the first one on the pile, and the first one I could grab, my Cozy X by Intermstein that I knit with mohair from the Pyrenees. I'm going to link in anyway down below the details for this sweater. Anyway, so you see my floats. I love seeing floats from people, and here are my floats. I really like that. And you see, they are not tight. They are not tight. They are just as they are, as they should be. So this is the front. And maybe you see the short rows better now that I have taken it off. And I usually weave my ends in and not clip the ends before I've blocked it. So I clipped my ends after blocking, and here is the whole floats. Here are all the floats for this sweater. I could wear it on this side. I could wear it on this side, don't you think? Don't you think it could be worn on this side? And I think I've seen, I don't recall where, because I don't open Instagram any longer, and I don't open Facebook any longer. So it was elsewhere. I don't recall where. Stories where people would wear their sweaters that way with the floats on the outside. Anyway, so you see there is the bump, and the bump here, you have a little depression here. This is on the other side where my sleeve was folded in half and pinned down, and I should not have done that. But I will, and here you have the little bump that you see on the other side. So I need maybe to block it flat just here, or steam block it or something, and I think it will arrange itself on its own. So I'm going to put it back on now. So okay, I'm back with my beret, with my scarf, the way I was before. I took my Dazzler off to show you the float. There are several ways to wear that beret, so I'm going to be talking about it after that. So I had 5 balls of the Gilliatt in Tempête, the dark blue, it's Storm. And this was my eldest son's Christmas present, and the 5 balls of Gilliatt, and the Dazzler was my Christmas cast on. I finished it on February 25. I casted it on December 25, so 2 months. 2 months worth of knitting, and so that's at the same, a bit quick for me, although I've already knit sweaters in 2 months, but it was a very addictive knit. Once I had solved my problem, my gauge problem on the sleeve, the second sleeve, I did drag a bit before casting on the second sleeve, because I was on my first sleeve. I was trying it on very, very, very often, deciding on how many checkerboard I would make in between the length that I would want and the style that I would like. I had decisions to make, and it was not a smooth sailing, so it was a bit difficult for me. And I kind of dragged on casting on the second sleeve, because I did not enjoy the first sleeve. But what happened is that on the second sleeve, I really didn't know where I was going. So it was once again smooth and enjoyable sailing on the second sleeve. I really, really recommend this pattern, or any, I would say, color work that is an all-over color work with a more simple motif, and if possible only two colors on the same row. It's really funny to knit. It's real fun, and I really enjoyed knitting it and seeing the color work take place as you knit it, and seeing it on the sleeves and align with the body. I really enjoyed a lot that type of knitting. I love the colors. The bouleau is birch in English, and it's kind of a whitish gray, but it's not uniform. And you know that Dererum Natura dye on gray yarns that are not completely uniform. So that's the closest. It's not undyed, but it's very, very light and whitish gray. And I think it goes very well with the dark blue, and I really love that. Don't show your butt to everyone, please. So after I finished the sweater, I was left with almost 2 complete balls of Gilead, so almost 200 grams. So 100 gram is 250 meters. So I had, 500 meters. So I said, what am I doing? In the Len 23, so it's winter 2024 book where Dazzler is on the front cover. It's black and white. It's made with black and white yarn. It is shown with South Sister. And South Sister is a hat that has some kind of texture and cables and stuff like that. So I said, okay, I'm going to use Tempête to make South Sister, the hat that is shown in the Len 23. Let me check, I'm not lying to you. In Len 23 for winter 2024. I'm going to knit the same hat that goes and that is shown with Dazzler. I casted it on, and very quickly I was thinking, there is no use, in my opinion, to knit a very complicated cabled hat in a dark yarn where the colors would not show. So I may knit it with the gray one, the light gray one, but with the blue one, there is no use. So I looked and looked and looked again, and I looked into my library, into patterns I own. So I browsed through my books, I browsed through my online Ravelry library, and I browsed through other resources, online resources I have where patterns may not be in Ravelry. For example, my library gives me access to, I think it's called The Knitter and Simply Knitting, for example. And so I have access to patterns there that are not necessarily on Ravelry. So I browsed through everything looking for a hat, and I kind of wanted a beret. I already have a blue beret, a dark blue beret, which is commercially made with yarn fabric, felted yarn fabric. It's not knit, and I bought it that way from Lolaire, which is a very famous beret company in France. I will link them down below. And I had UCHUJIN, I'm sorry, I may not be pronouncing that correctly. I had this pattern in my want to make and in my queue somewhere, and in my head. I've had this pattern for a long time. It's in Cosmology, the Dharma collection, where I knit Duskin in pink mohair. And UCHUJIN is, I hope I'm not butchering the name, is a funny hat because you can wear it several ways, as a beret, as kind of a hat, and I really liked it. I really liked the unusual shape, and you may recall I was not wearing it this way at the beginning of the video because here I have the whole brim that is unraveled, unfold. And it's a beret, so you have decreases, it's bottom up, you have decreases, and you have this very little pom-pom that I need, they call it a little ball, that I knit with the gray, and I stuffed with leftover yarn. So I usually wear it that way when I'm unfolding the brim, and when I fold the brim, it's more of a traditional hat or a traditional beret or tam that has, you know, some kind of a beret spirit at the top, not quite as a hat because it's flat, it's knit flat for quite a long time, and there are some increases and then some decreases, and you can see the little pom-pom better. So this is why I was wearing it that way at the beginning of the video, so that you see the little pom-pom a bit better. But I have to say that I have been wearing it the other way a bit more. It's just easier to put on my head and go. Now that I have had the hat this morning and since the beginning of the video, I think my hair is gonna be all sad and flat, so I'm not sure if I should keep the hat or not. I'll see. But I've been transitioning quite seamlessly. I will have to see for the timestamps so that you can go from one project to the other and to the other, but seamlessly I've been transitioning without a formal separation between the two, between the UCHUJIN and the Dazzler. And I really love the decreases, I love the way it looks, I love this little pom-pom, and I think that is what caught my eye at the beginning when I saw the hat, and I said, you know, a color block hat, one color with a little pop of colored pom-pom. I really liked the style, and you know, I like a lot the way it looks. I like the way it feels. It's as soft as of course the sweater, and I knit UCHUJIN in 4mm needles, the same needles as my Colorworks Dazzler sweater, and it's perfect. It's just perfect. I love it. I've blocked it on a plate to make the brim, you know, to have the perimeter of the beret be better defined from the big brim and the top. So what they have you do, or what they say you should do, is have it, you know, block flat like that, but I did put it on a plate so that there is a clean separation that kind of fades away as you wear it, but between the largest part of the beret, the smallest part on the brim, and the smallest part on the top. Easy, simple decreases, the little pom-pom that I placed on the inside around a button that I sewed, so that means I can wash the beret and I can remove the pom-pom. That would, you know, take a very long time to dry. And it's all in stockinette. And you know that I don't like when stockinette rolls on itself. There was a whole story with another sweater about that. Anyway, what they have you do, I don't think I'm giving up anything because it's a pet faux pattern, but this is not a secret. You start with a purl row. And you see, I haven't done anything. And my stockinette usually rolls on itself, and it doesn't here, and I'm quite happy with that. So that little beret, that little tam, that little hat is just the perfect companion for my Dazzler. Don't you think? Okay, so that's a formal section, a formal different section. So I used only 58 grams of the tempête in my beret, half a skein. So I was left with half a skein and another full skein. So I was saying, well, I thought I was going to be using all the leftovers in the beret, but no, I had used only a bit over half a skein. So I was thinking, what am I going to be doing with the rest of this yarn? I want to have it out of my stash. I want to use it all. So as my sleeves are a bit short to my liking, and if you are interested, I will put the recipe in my Ravelry page, and if you are even more interested, I can turn that into a free pattern. I made arm warmers. Arm warmers that can be long enough to go up to my elbow. Don't play with the yarn, please. Up to my elbow, so I can cover, even if I want to cover the sweater or any other sweater, or it can go under this part of the sweater so that it kind of, comes from under. Once my ends will be weaved in, etc., it comes from under the sweater and it makes it longer. I have to say it has been a bit warmer. Not warm, but a bit warmer. And I was not cold with shorter, or how do you call that? Bracelet sleeves or something like that. But anyway, if I want to have a longer sleeve, I can have it. And if I want to have a shorter sleeve, I can have it too. So I'm knitting, so this is the first one. I'm knitting on the second one, and I just started to use the last ball. So what I am going to be doing with that, what is left over, is make a bandana. I will use the same 4mm needles. I will increase up to the moment I have used half of what is left, and I will decrease and make some kind of a bandana, because I think, one day I said, I'm not sure I recall, maybe every sweater should have a matching removable caul or balaclava, because I made one, and maybe scarf or something like that if you have leftover yarn. I think every sweater should have also the matching removable sleeve, and I can use it in other situations, because you see, if I place it here, it goes up to my elbow. So even with a shirt, I've tried them on with a shirt, or even a short sleeve. You can have long arm warmers or something like that. I liked it. And one thing, I did the same thing as on the hat. I made a pearl row to start and to finish. I'm not sure which one is the start and which one is the finish. And you see, my stockinette is not curling on itself. So it may be the nature of the yarn. When I had all the curling happening on the Gallant sweater, the knitted end was much more drapey and supple, so maybe it had more tendency to roll onto itself, and maybe my gauge with the needle size I use and the Gilliatt, which is much stiffer yarn, maybe all of that combined make my stockinette roll a bit less on this type of knitting and with this type of yarn. I do not know, but anyway, I'm very happy. So please let me know if you want me to document what I've been doing. And so I'm not making promises to pull out a pattern, because, or at least not before the end of April. It's the big peak of my teaching season, so it's a lot of classes, lot of tests, lot of grading, so I won't have enough time to make it as a formal pattern before that, but I can put all the recipe down in the description box, and I can put all the recipe on my Ravelry page, so that if Ravelry is not available to you, you will have it on YouTube. So please let me know if this is of any interest to you, because if it's not, I'm just going to leave it that way. There is, it's knitting in the round for almost 30 centimeters, so that's not difficult at all to make it your own, with your own yarn, with your own gauge and your own needles and everything. So that's where I'm at. I'm on the second one, and I just made a little dent in the first ball. So you see I'm maybe halfway through, something like that. So I think I will have enough for a scarf or a bandana or something like that. But once again, I'm very amazed at how long of a way Gilliatt goes. I'm very surprised, because I've knit with Ulysse, which was going quite on a regular way for me. I was not surprised at the amount of yarn I was using, but I'm surprised at how little I used in my sweater, how much was left over, and how much I'm doing with 2 balls, because a hat, arm warmers that are not finished, and maybe a bandana, that's a lot, and it's a very satisfying yarn. And of course, I'm sure I will have written down on the video when I was talking about it. I completely forgot. UCHUJIN from Cosmology Dharma collection is by Kayomi Bergin, and I forgot to say it as I was talking about it. Next is a work in progress you have already seen, is Bear Mountain by Miriam Nodecker, and I'm working from time to time on it, and I've been working on the arm warmers much more than on my sock, because arm warmers are stockinette in the round, and you go round and you go round and round and round, and it's very easy when you have to kind of be careful with what you are doing on a sock with a motif. But the motif is not very difficult. I have it memorized, so I just go down, and now that my arm warmers are almost finished, I was thinking I need to go back to my sock and maybe try to make 1 motif per day. That would be good. I need at least 14 to go down to my heel, so it's gonna be done. It's my New Year's cast on. I'm not sure when it's gonna be finished. It's gonna be finished when it's gonna be finished. I think once I'm out of all the blue Gilliatt, I'm gonna go back and work on a regular basis on the sock, because also I want to get back to sock knitting to finish that one and make another one with other yarns. So I'm quite impatient about that. So okay, I need to make some time for my knitting. Okay, next, a new sweater cast on. After I finished my Dazzler, there are so many sweaters that are lined up in my want to make either a list or mental list, and I want to go to knitting these beautiful yarns I have in my stash. So next is a new cast on, a new sweater you haven't seen. You may recall, and I will write it on the screen because I do not recall exactly when I received it. One of the lovely yous sent me some rare Swiss wool, and the rare Swiss wool is 70% of the Swiss wool and 57% of the Swiss wool and 43% of muslin-free merino. And this is wool from Switzerland, from this very rare breed of sheep, in this absolutely beautiful beige, grayish beige, cold beige, kind of more beige than gray, but still a bit of gray. I absolutely love that color. The same one of you who's been, spoiling me, offered me the Sauvabelin sweater by Jessica Gore for Christmas. And the Sauvabelin sweater is knit with that wool. We were talking, and I may have said something, I don't really recall. So I cast it on. I really wanted to cast on the sweater, so I cast it on the Sauvabelin sweater. Sauvabelin sweater has a very beautiful cable motif in the front and plain stockinette for the back and the sleeves. So here I am. I have been knitting on it. I'm knitting on 4mm needles, I think I recall. It's not the gauge for the sweater. Yes, I'm knitting on 4mm needles, and I think the sweater calls for 3.75mm needles. But when I swatched, it's not a question of gauge. I liked my fabric much better on 4mm needles. So I usually am kind of an average knitter. My gauge is usually the one that is recommended for the yarn and for the needles. But I don't know. I liked the fabric better on 4mm needles. Anyway, you start. It's a very funny way to make short rows, because you start flat, you knit for the back, then I'm not sure I recall if you've already cast on enough stitches for the sleeves. I guess so. I don't recall. But anyway, you knit back and forth, and then you progressively cast on the stitches for the front, and when there is enough stitches, you join in the round and you start the motif. So that's kind of a way to make short rows while knitting flat for a sweater that will be made in the round. And I had never ever started a sweater that way. So it was a very interesting way to start the sweater. I made a boo-boo on the motif, and when I send you the picture, you kind of said, can you please circle where your mistake is, because I don't quite see it, and you had already made that sweater, so and even twice. So I was thinking, if she doesn't see it right away, maybe I don't need to rip out and start over. If you are careful enough, you can see that here on the first central cable, this one, it's my hand, this one here is not finished. It doesn't go to the middle as the other ones end up going, and what the pattern calls for, it's that way, it should be that way. And I think at some point, as you increase stitches and as you start to make the other motif that changes also on the side and everything, you change charts. And I think I missed a row. That's what I can guess from what I have done. So the small cable here, I could repair on both sides, and at first I saw it on the small cable here, because I was thinking, you're not twisting as much as you should. There is a huge gap at some point where you're not crossing, and this is not the way it should be. So I just let it down and repaired it. You kind of not see it, and I just thought, okay, I missed a cable there, and that's all. So I repaired it on both sides and carried on. And once I hit the second motif here, I made two, and I was thinking, I made a mistake here, and my mistake was also on that central cable. So I think I missed a row when we were changing charts. We were going from one chart to the other. I did not keep my notes well enough, or I did not read my notes well enough. I just, check every row when I do cable or lace or color work. And so either I did not check the rows, even though on the papers the rows are on my tablet, but the rows are checked, or I missed something. I don't know what. I don't know what I missed. But I think I missed a row because now that I'm, cruising on the increases for the sleeves and the body and everything. So you cable on one row and there is a rest row. The rest rows are even numbers on the charts, and the rest rows that are on with even numbers do not match with the instruction of the pattern for the increases and everything. The rest rows are on odd numbers for the increases instructions and stuff like that. So I think I missed a row. Basically, that's what happened. But the cable instructions are not on the same exact row that it should be for the increases for the raglan sleeves. Doesn't really bother me now that I know what I'm doing and where I'm going. It really doesn't bother me, and it's working like that, and I know that on the cables things happen on the odd numbers, and the increases that should happen on the odd numbered rows for the raglan, for the sleeves and body, happen on the even numbers. So I just know where I'm going, and I just know where I should increase, and it doesn't match the cable, but I don't think it matters at all. What matters most is the problem on the central cable. And as it was not obvious, and I think it can be seen as, you are going from no cable to the plain central cable. It's not a shocking mistake. It's not a mistake that would make me go back, because it's quite a lot of knitting. It's quite a lot of knitting time. It's not a difficult pattern, but it's quite an engaging pattern. It's not difficult at all. I cable without a cable needle because the yarn is sticky enough, is rustic enough for it to be able to cross 4 stitches and without a cable needle, so that's fine. So, but it's quite a bit of knitting, and I try in one sitting to do at least 2 rows so that I know where I am and I take notes of where I am every time. So I have done all the regular increase, every other row, and I'm now on the increases every 4th row. So I'm not very far from the moment I will, so I still have quite a bit of knitting before I separate for the sleeves. And I'll see if, I've already tried on, the cable is too small, but I've already tried on and it's, working perfectly for me. And so if I need a bit more length, I will play with that, but I think it's going to be okay. Don't you think? That cable motif is just perfect. It's perfect. I love it. You can see a bit, on camera I can see that I repaired my mistake here and probably somewhere here on the other side. But I can assure you that the camera is less forgiving than the real life, and in the real life you almost don't see it. So it's only the central cable, and I decided I was going to go with it because I can kind of, hide the mistake, the missing row in the small cable on the sides, but I don't think I can hide repairing a missing row on the central cable, and that will look like the other ones. It won't look at the other ones because you won't have the same height. So I'd rather leave it that way. I don't think that someone who doesn't know the pattern and who hasn't knit the pattern will see anything about the beginning of these central motif. The yarn is extremely beautiful, and it's extremely easy to knit with, it's very enjoyable to knit with, and this is a 100-gram skein, and this is what is left of the first skein. So once again, it goes quite a long way. So maybe my knitting has changed, because I used to use maybe 8 100-gram balls for, with mohair and stuff like that. So maybe my knitting has changed. Maybe my gauge has changed, and maybe I'm going to be using less yarn. But anyway, another very beautiful sweater, a very beautiful project, a very enjoyable project. That is all thanks to one of you, and I will never be able to thank you enough for that. Okay, that's gonna be it for today, my friends, and I do hope that all of your knitting and all of my knitting with you is able to soothe you out. We've had a lot of discussion recently, and as the day go by, the world is going crazier and crazier with things that I would never have imagined that would happen. I'm not sure this is in English, but you would have said, a couple weeks ago that things were happening that way. I would have said, no, there is no way this will ever happen. This weekend was a very special weekend, because even though my first son was born in April and my last son was born in March, at the end of March, we were all together this weekend for their birthday, because it just turned out that way. Now that they are living far away between the airfares, and whenever they can make time to come over for a weekend and everything, it happened last weekend. So we were all together for the weekend, and we did talk a lot about all of that is happening, and they are also very worried, more than I could have anticipated from our casual discussions, and we are on the same page. They are very worried, and as much as I am. But anyway, it was a little bubble of joy and love in this very strange world. And my last son, who is in Lyon, says, Lyon is there is smog and pollution. There is so much pollution in Lyon compared to here that, he wants to stay there to finish what he's doing at the Conservatoire of Music, the music school, the National Music School there. He wants to be finishing that part, but he says, I need to go by the seaside to breathe some fresh air. So what we did, it was a bit cold. So I had my Dazzler, I had my cool jacket by Neringa Ruke. I also had my Vertis Unite by Stephen West. So I was all wrapped up in my woolly wools, and I made coffee. We stopped by a bakery, boulangerie, and we got some breakfast, some French breakfast, croissant and pain au chocolat, which is these chocolate-filled puff pastries and other type of bread and stuff like that. So I made coffee, and we went by the sea and sat by the seaside and had a breakfast for maybe 2 hours. We went to walk for a little bit. I'm not sure I will put the clip at the beginning of the video or now. I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but there was some kind of a video that was recording on the seaside with a horse, someone on a horse, and there was a table, and there were flowers on the table, and someone was sitting and eating there, and the person on the horse was doing what Ham says he's doing now, is circling around the computer so that he can have my attention. So the person on the horse was riding, around the table, and there were people with cameras. There was shooting maybe a music video or film or something like that. And at some point, it was very funny. The person on the horse, stopped in front of the table, and I could not catch that. And the lady was sitting on the other side, and there was a flower. There were flowers on the table, and the horse started to eat the flowers. I don't think it was supposed to be that way. Anyway, it was very funny. So there was that. There were people who were walking by the seaside, walking their dogs, walking on the sand, walking on the little path that is along the seaside. And it was very enjoyable. And after that, we went to a restaurant at noon with my eldest son and his girlfriend who joined us. And we had one meal all together. And by the end of the day, my youngest son, who arrived late at night the day before, had to leave because he has an exam today. We are on a Monday, and tomorrow in Lyon, and that was not supposed to be right now, but they were supposed to be in April, and they decided it was right now. So we had to arrange with all of that. But we were all together, and it was a little bubble of joy and happiness and love in my day. And I did talk about you to them. All that happens on the channel, the chats we have, the people I've met here, the way we talk all together, all the good things that you do to me. I'm not saying sending yarn. I'm extremely happy when this happens, but this is absolutely not anything that I'm asking for. Just your presence here is so lovely. It fills my day. And when I answer the comments, it fills that time. When I film the video, I do it for you now. At first, when I first started, of course, it was just to, put my stories out in the world, and whatever happens will happen. But now I do it for you because I know you will be there when I publish a video. You will watch it, and it's a very, very positive way to use our digital world today. And our digital world is crazy. There are a couple more videos I would like to be filming about that. I've made already a couple about what my stance is and my take is on what's happening and what, as a knitter, and as a person, I've been doing. And there are a couple more ones I would like to be talking about. I may do that for the next ones. And in the next videos also, I want to be talking about my mindful buy, because I've been buying yarn to go with the red Nutiden, and for my sister-in-law who's requested, she's not requested, but she said, yeah, I would like that. So for Christmas, so I'm going to need something for her for Christmas, and I did not have the yarn for it. And so all of that, I think, is keeping my sanity at check. It helps me keep my sanity. And because otherwise, if I did not have this outlet, this craft to focus on when I'm knitting, and I do it mindfully, and I hope you manage to do that too, to mindfully place some joy and happiness into your knitting, because I can assure you that one, it doesn't come out all by itself, and two, that if you do it, it will help soothe you out. It won't change the world, it won't change it, and it's not retracting into our shell or burying our head in the sand, but it's having some bubbles of peace, of pleasure, of love, of calm, of joy and happiness into your knitting, and infuse your knitting with that. And when I'm knitting with the yarn that one of you sent me and the pattern that one of you got me, you are in that knit. My eldest son is in every dog stitch on my Dazzler. You know that? And you will be in this sweater, and a lot of you have been in my other knits. And when I take them to wear them on that day, I am reminded me of you. I am reminded me of positive feelings, and it helps. It won't change the world. It won't change the way I can be in the world, but it will change my inner feelings. And it's very, very important. I do hope that you manage to do that. And I thank you so much for being here with me, and I will see you next time. Un, deux, je sais pas si c'est les bons. Donc, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Top. And today it's going to be a regular episode about my yarny adventures, So, if that and my other projects, because I have a new cast on, is of any and a new 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Top. And so I used just a tad over 2 skeins of the, it doesn't blow up, it doesn't bloom up as much when you block it, because the dimension gotten up even maybe higher. No, I don't want that. Go away. I think I don't think there is no use making intricate cables on a dark yarn. They won't show. They will not show. So I'm gonna be knitting that hat with cables, a bit complicated cables, or a bit of work, and they won't show. He's going into my knitting. You move your tail. You're just in front of the camera. Please move your tail. Okay? Thank you. Okay, so I tried to arrange my hair. So what they have you do when you knit flat, they don't say, they just say knit it, block it. When you block, what they top, seemingly once everything will be 3/4 sleeves or mid, how you call that? How do you call that? Bracelet sleeves? I think I'm sick of these animations. One day I was saying maybe every hat need a balaclava or a hood or some kind of matching scarf. I think you may recall, maybe I will write it down. I'm sorry. He's being a bit of a pain.
For the increases, things happen on the odd numbers, and
For the cables, things happen on the no.
first, no.
Please. Croissant and pain au chocolat, that is that